After my rebirth, I unexpectedly discovered that my gentle and refined husband possessed another face entirely. He was base, greedy, twisted, and consumed by jealousy. To marry me, he plotted meticulously, scheming at every turn. On the day the truth was revealed, I trembled as I asked, "Then, did you ever truly care for me?" He took my hand and placed it over his chest, letting out a careless chuckle. "Shall I pull it out for Gigi to see?" I never imagined that the husband I had always treated coldly would be pierced by 1,000 arrows to save me. His back was riddled with arrows. Yet he shielded me, keeping me safe and unharmed in his embrace. "Why did you come?" I stared at him, utterly lost, tears streaming down my face. He smiled, but before he could speak, he coughed up a mouthful of blood. After gasping for breath for a long moment, he whispered softly, "Gigi, I want you to remember me forever." When I opened my eyes again, I discovered I had been reborn. At that moment, Pei Zihang was nagging in my ear. "Gigi, tell him quickly. Tell him to stop his foolish dreams, you won't marry him." Still reeling from the shock of my rebirth, I could only stare blankly at the person before me. Amidst the swirling blizzard, Xiao Shua now stood before me, unharmed. Tears fell as I murmured, "Xiao Shua." The biting cold wind lashed my face, lending a harsh reality to this absurd rebirth. I remembered. This was the winter solstice night of the year I was betrothed to Xiao Shua. Every winter solstice, the emperor hosted a family banquet at the Wangxian Pavilion to celebrate with his people. That year, Xiao Shua's carriage broke down en route, causing him to arrive half an hour late. The emperor punished him by making him stand guard below the tower. And the mastermind behind it all was me. In my previous life, resentful of being betrothed to Xiao Shua, I enlisted my childhood friend Pei Zihang to take revenge for me. He schemed to bribe Xiao Shua's coachman, deliberately causing the carriage to break down midway. Pei Zihang boasted before me, "With just a little trick, I got him punished. How about it, Gigi? Happy now?" I tapped the table impatiently. "What good does that do? I still have to marry him." "Did you even talk to him clearly?" "Heaven knows. I not only talked to him, I threatened him, because I embarrassed him several times. My crown prince brother even scolded me, telling me not to go too far." Pei Zihang retorted defiantly. "And he still won't call off the engagement?" I frowned. Who knows? Could he still harbor illusions about Gigi? Pei Zihang narrowed his eyes. "If that's the case, perhaps Gigi should go down personally to set him straight and crush his hopes." "Excellent idea," someone chimed in. The aristocratic young masters and ladies, who had been admiring the snow, gathered around, leisurely preparing to watch the spectacle. Seeing the crowd egging him on, Pei Zihang grabbed an oil paper umbrella and immediately pulled me downstairs. According to Pei Zihang's plan, I was supposed to hold a cup of hot tea, douse it over Xiao Shua's head, and then tell him viciously, "Don't even think about a toad trying to eat swan meat, I absolutely will not marry him." But a little accident happened. I reincarnated. Xiao Shua's eyelashes were coated in snow. In such bitter cold, I couldn't stand for long. Yet he'd endured the entire night here because of my mistake. In my previous life, the emperor had actually left long ago, but no one informed Xiao Shua. He stood until the dead of night, only departing after every light in the immortal viewing tower had been extinguished. I heard he burned with fever for 3 days and nights after returning. What was I thinking back then? I was thinking, if he stayed bedridden, perhaps I wouldn't have to marry him. Gigi, what are you spacing out for? Speak up. Pei Zihang stood beside me, umbrella raised, urging me to respond. I stepped forward, my voice catching. Xiao Shua. Are you cold? Xiao Shua's lashes fluttered. His gaze swept over the teacup in my hand, a flicker of discomfort crossing his face. Seeing he didn't respond, I snatched the umbrella from Pei Zihang's hand. With one arm, I struggled to hold it high above his head, shielding him briefly from the wind and snow. With my other hand, I offered the hot tea. Xiao, third prince, would you like some tea? Xiao Shua stared at me with heavy eyes. Seeing my stubborn insistence on holding the cup, he gave a self-mocking smile before taking it and pouring the tea directly onto his own clothes. Is that satisfactory, Miss Meng and Prince Pei? No. I started to explain, but Xiao Shua turned his head away, closing his eyes. Still not satisfied? Then, what more do you wish to humiliate me with? I froze in place, my mouth opening and closing, yet no words came out. I couldn't blame him for misunderstanding me. In the past, I truly had wronged him. I was the legitimate daughter of the Duke's household, with my father and brothers holding high positions in the court. Even an unloved princess would yield respectfully upon seeing me. I was once the prime candidate for crown princess. Yet at the Lotus banquet, I fell into the water and was rescued by third Prince Xiao Shua. To preserve the reputations of both the Duke's household and the imperial family, the Empress had no choice but to decree our marriage. My crown prince brother, a gentleman of utmost integrity, was the object of admiration for every noble lady in the capital. Xiao Shua, however, was merely the product of the emperor's drunken folly with a palace maid, his status not even matching that of a favored servant. Marrying him was naturally unbearable to me. Depressed and withdrawn, I feigned illness and confined myself to my chambers, writing only a tearful letter to the crown prince. The next day, the crown prince sent Pei Zihang to see me. Pei Zihang seemed even angrier than I was. How dare he, of all people, compete with my crown prince brother for her? Gigi, don't be afraid. The crown prince said the empress's arranged marriage isn't set in stone. If the third prince proves unworthy, the betrothal can be annulled. I'll help you, little Pei. I muffled my voice from under the covers. After all, he saved me. If you harm him, wouldn't that make me repay kindness with betrayal? Gigi, you don't understand. He wasn't saving you at all. The crown prince said he's of lowly birth and wanted the duke's support. So he bribed someone to push you into the water. Then he played the hero to rescue you, forcing Auntie to arrange the marriage between you two. Then don't do anything rash. You just need to find a chance to help me explain to him clearly that I don't want to marry him. But Pei Zihang wouldn't listen. He's the empress's nephew, the crown prince's cousin, spoiled and arrogant since childhood, and fiercely protective of his own. Later I learned that while I was convalescing, Pei Zihang repeatedly publicly humiliated Xiao Shua, claiming it was to avenge me. Only after the crown prince and my elder brother took turns reprimanding him did he finally rein in his behavior. But his antics had spread throughout the capital, news that I refused to marry him. For this, I even received a stern scolding from my brother. After recovering, my brother instructed me to thank Xiao Shua. Pei Zihang volunteered to accompany me. I brought most of my family's wealth, 1,000 acres of prime farmland, deeds to several shops, hoping to sway him with riches and persuade him to withdraw the marriage proposal. But Xiao Shua was utterly cold. Feeling humiliated, I snapped back. If your highness wishes to marry me, first fix up this mansion. I refuse to live in worse conditions than the servants at the duke's residence. Pei Zihang immediately retorted. Who do you think you are? Don't push your luck, Pei. I scolded him, halting his outburst. Yet the entire visit ended in discord. On our wedding night, after lifting my veil, Xiao Shua skipped the ceremonial wine-sharing ritual and retreated to his study. From then on, our relationship remained as cold as ice. For 3 years, we never consummated our marriage. Yet upon reflection, In my previous life, though his demeanor was cold, he never mistreated me in any other way. The mansion was completely renovated, my clothing, food, lodging, and daily life were all perfectly to my liking. My days in the third prince's residence felt more at ease than even at my own home. Scenes from my past life kept replaying. I looked up at Xiao Shuo, several times wanting to speak but choking back sobs instead. Seeing my silence, Pei Ziheng snorted coldly. Satisfied? How could you be satisfied? Gigi is too shy to say it. But you should see clearly, Gigi doesn't want to marry you. Only then did I snap back to reality. Hastily scolding. Little Pei. Stop talking nonsense. Xiao Shuo's gaze fell upon my face, deep as an abyss, meeting his pitch-black eyes. I froze momentarily. Without thinking, I reached out to brush snow from his shoulder and murmured, I heard your carriage broke down. If you don't mind, the Duke's carriage can take you home. Pei Ziheng's eyes widened in shock. Ziji, what are you saying? You're going back with him? I wrecked his carriage to vent my anger for you. Not so he could ride in yours. He certainly knew how to own up to things. I sighed. Little Pei. I was wrong before, failing to recognize my own feelings. From now on, you mustn't use venting for me as an excuse to act recklessly. I'm soon to marry His Highness. Making things difficult for him is making things difficult for me. Pei Ziheng's eyes widened as he shouted. Gigi, have you lost your mind? Do you even realize what you're saying? His outburst drew the gazes of all the noble guests on the Wangxian pavilion. I seized Xiao Shuo's hand, lifting the fingers intertwined with mine, and declared clearly, the third prince and I are betrothed. Whoever displeases him displeases me. With that, ignoring the stares, I pulled Xiao Shuo toward my carriage. Outside, the air was bitterly cold, but inside the carriage, warmth enveloped us like spring. Naturally, the carriage of the Duke's residence was far more luxurious than that of Xiao Shuo, the fallen prince. The moment Xiao Shuo stepped inside, he withdrew his hand from mine. I looked up at him, but he turned his head away, refusing to meet my gaze. I used to think he despised me, but now I wonder. Perhaps it was shyness? Melting snow dripped from his temples, dampening his hair. Dark circles lingered beneath his eyes. His complexion pale. He'd already coughed softly several times. My heart twisted in concern. I couldn't help but ask, are you still cold? Xiao Shuo kept his eyes downcast. His voice strained. Miss Meng, there are no outsiders here. There's no need to. Keep up the act. I froze, momentarily confused. Act? What act? Wasn't it all for the Crown Prince's betrothal? Weariness clouded his eyes. The Crown Prince is betrothed to the minister's daughter. You're unhappy about it, deliberately showing me favor to spite him. So that's how he saw it. Everyone says I'm fond of the Crown Prince. I never really thought about it before. I just felt he treated me well. If I had to marry someone, being his crown princess seemed better than marrying a stranger. Now, living this life again, I realize the crown prince treats everyone well. Just as I was about to explain, the carriage stopped at the Duke's residence. I reluctantly stepped down, and Xiao Shuo followed. Thank you for the ride. Miss Meng. Did he think I'd merely given him a passing lift? Deep into the night, heavy snow fell. His figure stood out starkly, lonely in the wind and snow. Though the Duke's residence wasn't far from the third prince's estate, he'd been made to stand outside all night without a drop of water. I grabbed his sleeve abruptly. You weren't planning to walk back, were you? He pulled his sleeve free without a flicker of emotion and took a step back. Seeing his guarded posture, a pang of bitterness welled up inside me. Knowing he couldn't remember, I could only say, naturally, I had the driver take your highness back to the mansion. Maids already waited at the Duke's gate with a cloak and hot water bottle. I thrust them all into his hands. The night is deep and the snow heavy. Don't catch cold, I urged. My eyes red. His lips moved. And after a long moment, he croaked. Thank you, Miss Meng. We are betrothed. Your Highness may call me Gigi. And if anyone should be thanking anyone, it should be me thanking your Highness. Thank you for risking your life to protect me in my past life. Gigi, I want you to remember me for the rest of your life. I jolted awake from the nightmare, the faint scent of bitter cypress lingering in the air. Hearing the commotion, a maid entered and asked, "Today is His Highness the Crown Prince's birthday. Is the young lady ready to rise?" Yes. After the winter solstice came the Crown Prince's birthday. In years past, I would rise early to dress and adorn myself, bearing gifts to personally offer birthday wishes at the Eastern Palace. The Crown Prince would prepare a family banquet, gathering with a few close noble sons and daughters for a small celebration. This year, I had gifts prepared and sent over early, but I myself was preparing to go to the third prince's residence, because today is also Xiao Shuo's birthday. In my previous life, it was only in the third year after our marriage that I learned his birthday actually fell on the same day as the Crown Prince's. I remember that day. Heavy snow falling. Guards from the Crown Prince's residence came early to relay a message. The Crown Prince was ill, lacking appetite, and longed especially for the longevity noodles I made. They had sent an old woman specifically to ask me for the recipe. Though utterly baffled, I still taught the matron diligently, thinking she'd need more practice. I personally prepared a bowl of noodles for the guards to deliver to the Crown Prince on his birthday. That afternoon, Xiao Shuo unexpectedly barged into my courtyard. I was practicing calligraphy when I saw him, his face flushed and reeking of alcohol. I couldn't help but frown. This man was already frail, wandering around drunk in the dead of winter was practically asking for illness. Seeing my frown, Xiao Shuo's eyes darkened with gloom. Suddenly, he seized my wrist. Gigi, I want to eat longevity noodles too. He was usually so cool and distant, it was rare to see him display such stubbornness. I looked at him in confusion. He stared at me for a long moment before slowly releasing my wrist. Taking 2 steps back, he gave a self-deprecating chuckle. I'm drunk. Don't mind me. With that, he staggered away again. The next morning, I heard he'd suffered a relapse of his old ailment last night, summoning the imperial physician in the dead of night. I rose to check on him. He was asleep, but restless. As I reached to touch his forehead, he seized my wrist, holding it fast, his brow furrowed as if in a dream. Listening closely, I heard him whisper, "Gigi, don't leave." Flustered, I turned to summon the attendant who had followed him. What happened? I demanded. Why did His Highness drink so much last night? The servant lowered his head, silent for a long moment before finally saying, "Your Highness forbade me to speak of it. But yesterday was actually his birthday." My heart jolted, and the entire sequence of events instantly clicked into place. Raised in the imperial retreat, he'd never been cherished. His birthday coincided with the Crown Prince's, so likely no one had ever properly celebrated his own. Yet on his birthday, I personally cooked a bowl of longevity noodles for the Crown Prince. A wave of guilt washed over me. These past 3 years, he had never treated me harshly, in many ways. He could even be called considerate. It was only because he always avoided me, maintaining a cold demeanor, that I often overlooked his kindness. But in my heart, I was indebted to him. Xiao Shuo didn't awaken until the 3rd day. I personally fed him water and brought out the warm longevity noodles. Though this year's birthday had passed, I would remember it from now on. Alas, that was the last birthday we shared together. Not long after, He was pierced by countless arrows while saving me. Xiao Shua was surprised by my visit. Why has Miss Meng come? I flashed him a smile. Naturally. I've come to celebrate your Highness's birthday. Celebrate? Xiao Shua looked even more bewildered. He had always been as cold and distant as a jade carving. But this look of surprise actually made him seem more human. Yet it only made my heart ache more. Your Highness. Do you not intend to invite me in? Only then did Xiao Shua react, stepping aside to welcome me inside. I handed him the food box. I rose early this morning and personally cooked birthday noodles and pastries for your Highness. They should still be warm. Wishing you health and prosperity year after year. Xiao Shua lowered his eyes, studying the box for a long moment before speaking. Going to such trouble to find out my birthday. Then cooking for me yourself. Miss Meng, you're here concerning Prince Pei, aren't you? This time, it was my turn to freeze. What does this have to do with Pei Ziheng? Xiao Shua's eyes held a trace of mockery. I appreciate your kindness. Miss Meng, tell Prince Pei that the wager is off. A wager? I racked my brain. Then a sudden flash of memory struck me. I had indeed heard of such a thing. In my past life around this time, Pei Ziheng had challenged Xiao Shua at a banquet, forcing him to a duel. Pei Ziheng had boasted that if he lost, he would shave his head and become a monk. Later, Pei Ziheng did indeed lose. His family had to bring him to the third prince's residence to apologize. Smoothing things over, Pei Ziheng became the laughingstock of the capital for a time, too ashamed to show his face in public. So Xiao Shua thought that by bringing this gift today, I was pleading on Pei Ziheng's behalf? Though Xiao Pei and I were close since childhood, inseparable like glue and paper, we'd gotten up to plenty of mischief together. But as I grew older and he began serving the crown prince, our interactions dwindled considerably. Besides, when he made mistakes, his family naturally handled the aftermath. Why would it fall to me to intercede? I couldn't fathom why Xiao Shua would jump to such conclusions. But seeing him prepare to take his leave, I hurriedly stopped him. This has nothing to do with young Master Pei. I inquired about your birthday and cooked for you simply because. Xiao Shua raised an eyebrow, as if waiting for me to concoct some plausible excuse. I lost my mother at a young age, and my elder brother never restricted me. Thus, while I possess some maidenly reserve, it is not excessive. Gritting my teeth, I confessed. It's because I'm fond of you. Xiao Shua's eyes flickered briefly before settling back into calm. He closed his eyes, his voice laced with bitterness. You're quite willing to go to extremes for Pei Ziheng, aren't you? He didn't believe me. It made sense. Pei Ziheng had been tormented by me countless times before. And aside from that winter solstice night, I'd never shown him any warmth. His disbelief was understandable. But my first confession ending in failure left me bitterly frustrated. And a surge of recklessness overtook me. I stepped forward, grabbed his collar, forced his head down, and snarled. I told you it has nothing to do with Pei Ziheng. Before he could react, I lifted my head and pressed my lips against his. Xiao Shua's eyes widened abruptly, and he swiftly pulled me away. His Adam's apple bobbed as he drew a deep breath, his voice low and stern. Do you know what you're doing? Seeing him like this, I felt a strange stir within me. I hadn't noticed before, but today I realized how strikingly handsome he truly was. His star-like eyebrows and sword-like eyes framed a face like carved jade. Standing there coldly, he exuded an innate, dashing charm. For a moment, he outshone all the men of the capital. Had it not been for all those misunderstandings, in our past life, we should have been a model couple. Thinking of this, sadness washed over me. In our past life, he loved me deeply, yet now he refused to believe me. My emotions churned, joy one moment, hurt the next, and tears welled in my eyes. Why? Are you crying? Xiao Shuo stared at me blankly, his hand reaching out to wipe my tears before hesitating and dropping back. I knew deep-seated distress didn't form overnight. Turning my face away, I roughly wiped my tears. If your highness won't believe me, then I shall depart first. Say it again. Say it once more, and I will believe you. His voice was unusually hoarse, as if he were desperately suppressing something. What? I looked up at him, suddenly struck by inspiration. My heart delights. Before I could finish, a hand clamped around the back of my neck, and Xiao Shuo pulled me violently into his embrace. His scorching breath, tinged with the bitterness of cypress, engulfed me. This time, it was my turn to stare wide-eyed. In my past life, Xiao Shuo and I had never consummated our marriage. The most transgressive act we'd shared was a mere embrace. Though I'd secretly studied the fire-avoiding diagram, knowledge gained from paper always felt shallow. I never knew that a simple kiss could leave one dizzy, flushed, and weak at the knees. Clinging to Xiao Shuo's shoulders, I nearly lost my footing several times. After an unknown duration, he finally released me. I stumbled back a step, clutching the table corner with lingering fear, looking at him helplessly. Xiao Shuo's gaze was heavy, his voice still tinged with unvanquished desire. He said, "Gg. You shouldn't have come to provoke me." Amidst the New Year banquets and a bout of illness, I found no further opportunity to meet Xiao Shuo, yet he would occasionally send small gifts, as if reading my mind. Whatever I desired would arrive within days. More remarkably, every item he chose perfectly suited my taste. Even the pastries he sent were from Kai Zhizhai, my absolute favorite. Before I knew it, the Lantern Festival arrived. Feeling much better, I arranged to meet Xiao Shuo at the Wangxian Pavilion. Xiao Shuo had to attend a palace banquet first, so I arrived early at the pavilion, chose a good spot, and sat sipping tea while waiting for him. But no sooner had I settled in than Pei Ziheng stormed over and sat down across from me. "Gigi, didn't you receive my invitation?" I sighed. Only after living this life anew did I realize that the layers of misunderstanding between Xiao Shuo and me were inextricably linked to young Master Pei. But I knew he harbored no ill will, he'd merely been used as a pawn by the crown prince, ultimately suffering the ruin of his family. Recalling our childhood bond, I resolved to reason with him. I sipped my tea and replied slowly. "Didn't you get my reply? I have plans with someone else tonight." "Who?" Pei Ziheng stared at me. "You truly intend to marry him? If you're unwilling, I'll go to the palace tonight and beg my aunt. I'll risk everything." "Risk what? You have no military merit, no inherited title, just a spoiled heir living off your family. Do you really think you could make the Empress change her mind?" Pei Zhu stared at me in disbelief, his expression wounded. "Gg. How could you say that? Is what I said wrong? If I were you, I'd focus on my studies instead of wasting your days with a bunch of good-for-nothings." I snorted coldly. "Besides, I never said I wouldn't marry the third prince." You. Pei Ziheng pointed at me, trembling with fury. "You've forgotten my crown prince brother so quickly." I raised an eyebrow at him. "I never said I liked the crown prince. Don't you dare say that again." Pei Ziheng froze. You don't like crown prince brother anymore? There are many fine young men in the world, why must you marry him? Because third prince is well-read. I like his refined, elegant gentlemanly manner." Pei Ziheng's eyes flashed with malice. He snorted coldly. "After tonight, he'll be ruined. You won't think he's so great anymore." I frowned. "Tonight? What have you done?" Pei Ziheng turned his head away in a huff, refusing to look at me. "Tonight? The palace banquet? To ruin someone's reputation at the banquet. Did they plan to drug Xiao Shuo?" Pei Ziheng doesn't have the clout to pull something like that off in the palace. He must have heard something. My eyes snapped open. The crown prince drugged him? No. Xiao Shuo is extremely cautious about what he consumes. He wouldn't be so easily poisoned. Unless... Pei Ziheng sneered coldly. And we have Gigi to thank for that. I instantly knocked over my teacup. This afternoon, I sent someone to deliver a flask of my homemade winter brew to Xiao Shuo. The words snow fragrance on the flask were written by my own hand. Lost in thoughts of our evening rendezvous, I hadn't noticed whether the maid returned to report. What if someone had taken her straight to the palace banquet? Upon seeing the wine, Xiao Shuo would assume it came from me and remain completely unsuspecting. This realization spurred me to leap up and dash downstairs, determined to enter the palace. Pei Ziheng followed, reaching out to block me. Gigi. He holds no power or influence. Nor is he favored. No matter how much he boasts, he'll always remain a leisurely prince. Why did you choose him of all people? I shoved Pei Ziheng's hand away, swung onto my horse, and looked down at him from above. Little Pei. I thought I made myself perfectly clear on the winter solstice. Whoever opposes him opposes me. Should anything happen to him tonight, our friendship ends. And mind your own business regarding the crown prince. Without waiting for his reply, I spurred my horse into a gallop. Having roamed the palace freely since childhood, I encountered no obstacles along the way. By the time I reached the banquet hall, familiar with every turn, Xiao Shuo was nowhere to be found. After a moment's thought, I dashed toward the imperial garden, where several pavilions served as resting places. Time was short, searching each one individually would be futile. Stay calm. Stay calm. I took a deep breath and scanned the ground for footprints. Soon, I noticed assorted tracks leading toward the Hanbai Pavilion. Without hesitation, I sprinted in that direction. Midway, as I passed an artificial hill, a hand suddenly emerged from within, grabbing me. The world spun violently, and I fell into a scorching embrace. My hair stood on end. Just as I was about to scream, a low, hoarse warning cut me off. Don't make a sound. It was Xiao Shuo's voice. A heavy weight lifted from my heart, and I finally breathed a sigh of relief. Xiao Shuo held me tightly around the waist with one arm from behind. His other hand pressed firmly over my mouth. His jaw rested in the hollow of my neck, heavy breathing echoing in my ear. His scorching breath nearly burned my earlobe. Soon, a clamor erupted. Someone charged forward, kicked open the gates of Hanbai Pavilion, and shrieked, "Your Highness! The noble consort! What are you doing here?" Peering through the crevices of the rockery, I finally understood the crown prince's scheme. An unloved prince and a favored noblewoman, drunk and disgraced, defiling the imperial harem. This would eliminate both Xiao Shuo and the troublesome noblewoman he, while also freeing me from my betrothal. Then, any member of the crown prince's faction could easily propose marriage to me, turning the duke's mansion into another asset for the crown prince. Truly, one stone killed 3 birds. The crown prince's scheme was truly vicious. A cold sweat broke out on my brow. I hadn't expected him to strike so soon. In my previous life, the crown prince hadn't moved until after the wedding. Was it because of my rebirth that this happened earlier? No. It was also possible that I hadn't paid attention to Xiao Shuo back then. Perhaps he had already been secretly harmed by the crown prince before the wedding, and I simply hadn't known. In any case, I had completely misjudged the situation. And because of my mistake, I nearly lost Xiao Shuo again. I couldn't wait any longer. I had to tell him everything immediately, so he could guard himself sooner. The person behind me suddenly let out a cold laugh. Gigi had come straight for Hanbai Pavilion. Did she know I'd get into trouble? I hadn't fallen for the trap. Was Gigi disappointed? I'd never heard Xiao speak in such a tone before. Though reserved by nature, he'd always been gentle with me. Occasional lapses were usually self-deprecating. But now, his laughter carried an unsettling madness that sent chills down my spine. He must have misunderstood, thinking I was allied with the crown prince. I tried to speak up in haste, but he sealed my acupoints, leaving me speechless and immobilized. He swept me into his arms, leaping nimbly between palace walls until we took a shortcut out of the grounds. Only then did I realize how extraordinary his lightness skills truly were. Once inside the carriage, he seemed drained, yet still held me tightly, refusing to let go. His body burned with feverish heat, trembling uncontrollably as he fought to suppress his desire. A scorching hand brushed my cheek, his thumb, thick with calluses, tracing my jawline repeatedly. My mind went blank. My body stiffened. His breath grew ragged, like a starved beast panting fiercely against my neck. Ziji. Ziji. He repeated my name, as if trying to crush it between his teeth. Suddenly, he shoved me away violently, sending me tumbling to the corner of the carriage. Before I could react, a cold gleam flashed. He produced a dagger from somewhere and slashed his own arm with brutal force. He closed his eyes briefly, then opened them again, his gaze regaining some clarity. A self-mocking curve touched his lips as he gasped out, "Gigi, look. Even after what you've done to me, I still can't bring myself to hurt you." On the winter solstice night, she took my hand to show affection. On my birthday, she initiated a kiss. During the Lantern Festival, she brought wine. Gigi, to break off the engagement, had indeed planned every step meticulously, leaving no stone unturned. He stared at me for a long time, his eyes filled with pain and confusion. Suddenly, as if making a momentous decision, he said, "Enough. I'll grant your wish. I'll find a way to handle the annulment. Gigi, you needn't trouble yourself further." "What annulment? I don't want to annul it." My eyes widened as tears streamed down my face. I looked at him pitifully, hoping he'd release my acupoints so I could explain. But he let out a low groan and slashed himself again. "Ziji, don't look at me like that. I'm afraid I won't be able to resist." His gaze seemed unfocused, his words disjointed. "I knew you weren't willing, yet I kept hoping that if you understood me a little more." It was my foolish delusion. Stop crying. I always wanted to make you happy. After leaving me at the Duke's mansion gate, Xiao Shua departed immediately. The servants at the entrance, seeing me unable to move, rushed over in alarm. Half a cup of tea later, my acupoints released themselves. Covered in blood and behaving so strangely upon my return, I finally alarmed my elder brother. My heart burned with anxiety, yet I feared for Xiao Shua's well-being. 1,000 thoughts tangled in my mind, leaving me choked with sobs, unable to speak. My brother, however, turned to question the servants about the incident. After a moment's thought, he asked, "Could this be connected to the third prince?" I nodded, as if finally finding a way out. "Brother, I refuse to call off the engagement. I must go find him. He lost so much blood." My brother soothed me. "Don't panic. Gigi. I'll take a physician with me to see him immediately. Change your clothes, drink this calming tea, and rest first." I grabbed my brother's sleeve, my eyes red. "Brother, I won't call off the engagement." He gave me a strange look. "Very well. Wait for me to return." Something felt off, but my mind was too chaotic to process it. My brother returned at dawn, while I hadn't slept a wink all night. Hearing he was back, I rushed to find him. "Brother, how is he?" His expression turned serious. Gigi, tell me everything that happened last night. I paused, then quickly recounted the events. So this poisoning business has nothing to do with you? You just guessed the crown prince was going to strike and rushed to the palace to save him? I nodded. My brother suddenly smiled. He does care about you, doesn't he? Even after such a misunderstanding, he couldn't bring himself to hurt you in the slightest. I frowned, finally understanding the source of that strange feeling. It was my brother's attitude. Xiao Shuo is unpopular, powerless, and even Pei Ziheng dares to boss him around. Yet my brother, holding such high rank, why did he rush to the third prince's side last night the moment he heard of trouble? Why such urgency? Did my brother strike some kind of deal with him? I asked. My brother glanced at me with surprise. Gigi, you're far more perceptive than I imagined. Since you've guessed it, I won't hide it from you. The emperor is advanced in years, and the duke's household stands with the third prince. How could that be? I found it hard to believe, but upon reflection, it was indeed the best choice. Among the adult princes, the crown prince appears outwardly courteous and virtuous, yet behind closed doors, he is treacherous, cunning, and cold-hearted. In my previous life, after I uncovered his secrets, he sought to kill me, casting aside our years of friendship. The second prince is stubborn and self-willed, and his maternal family is deeply at odds with the duke's household and the court. Regardless of which of them ascends the throne, the military power held by our father will become a thorn in their side. When that time comes, the duke's household will undoubtedly be a thorn in their side. The third prince lacks imperial favor. His maternal clan is weak, and he has no solid foundation, making him the easiest to manipulate. It was the third prince who approached me. He has hidden his light and bided his time for years. His steadfast resolve has truly made me look at him with new respect. Moreover, his sincerity is genuine, otherwise the duke's household would never have consented to this marriage. What sincerity? Have you ever been inside his study? My brother suddenly asked out of the blue. I shook my head. In my previous life, though I felt at ease in his mansion, his study was strictly off-limits. I was never permitted to enter. My brother smiled meaningfully. After you're married, you can see for yourself. Then, has he mentioned annulling the engagement to you? I wasn't concerned about the study, only this matter. He has. My brother replied slowly. He said he wouldn't force someone unwilling and make you unhappy. I'm going to explain this to him. I grabbed my skirt and started rushing out. Come back! My brother grabbed me by the arm and scolded. Where's your dignity as a noble lady? What dignity do I need when I'm about to lose my fiancé? Nonsense. His poison hasn't fully cleared. Why stir up trouble? My brother gave a cold laugh. As if recalling something. Someone seeks to sow discord, but the duke's household won't let them succeed. You'll stay home obediently these days, preparing for the wedding. You're not allowed to go anywhere before the marriage. I must be the most eager bride in this dynasty. Day after day at home, counting the days. I couldn't wait to marry into the Xiao Shuo household. 10 days later, dressed in my phoenix crown and bridal robes, I sat in the wedding chamber, my mind racing. I wondered how the wound on his arm had healed. Should I explain that night first? Or drink the ceremonial wine? After waiting a long time for Xiao Shuo, I was greeted instead by a maid from his residence. His Highness has instructed us to remove your bridal attire and hair ornaments. Princess consort. A wave of dizziness washed over me as I suddenly recalled my previous life unfolding in this exact manner. He had sent servants early to help me shed the heavy bridal robes and hairpins, urging me to rest first. Yet I had mistaken his intentions for humiliation. I refused to let him lift my veil, refused to share the ceremonial wine, refused to consummate our marriage. Furious, I drove those two maids out and sat upright on the bridal bed. When he came to lift the veil, he met my eyes, burning with anger. As if stung, he turned his face away and said, "You're tired today. Rest well." With that, he stumbled away. Looking back now, it was all because I'd been deceived by the crown prince and Paisley Hang, harboring deep prejudice against him, which led to all these misunderstandings. The two maids helped me unload my burdens and thoughtfully brought me pastries and hot tea. My heart felt bitter and sour. Had he ever arranged things so meticulously for me in our past life? Covering my eyes, I held back tears, but they still fell. When Xiao Shuo entered, he found me weeping while eating pastries. My gaze met his, and a bite of pastry caught in my throat as my tears flowed even more freely. He dismissed the attendants, standing at the doorway. "Time is short," he said hurriedly. "We must marry first. But I won't break my promise to you. I'll set you free as soon as possible. You get some rest." Without waiting for my response, he turned and left. I finally swallowed the pastry and hurriedly called after him, "Xiao Shuo, wait!" But he vanished faster than a rabbit, already out of sight. Couldn't he wait for me to finish speaking? I'd been weeping uncontrollably, but now I was so exasperated I pressed my hands to my temples. In my past life, I'd realized Xiao Shuo's feelings for me far too late, and his temperament certainly played a part in that. I never understood why he always lost his composure whenever it came to me. He clearly adored me to death, yet he always acted as if I were some venomous creature. That's why I spent 3 lonely years waiting for him. Now that I'd cried my fill and eaten my fill, I stood up and clapped my hands, determined to clear up the misunderstanding tonight and finally be together. I threw on my cloak, picked up a lamp, and headed toward the study. Sure enough, the study was lit. Xiao Shuo's silhouette was cast against the window lattice. I approached and knocked. Xiao Shuo's cold voice asked, "Who is it?" A name danced on my lips, but I couldn't bring myself to say it. "It's me." The room fell silent. After a long moment, Xiao Shuo's voice came, tinged with panic. "It's so late. Why aren't you resting?" The spring chill was biting, wearing only a light robe beneath my cloak. I shivered from the cold. "Could I come in first? It's so cold out here," I asked, trembling. A sigh echoed from within. The door opened, and a hand pulled me into the study. Before I could see clearly, a red silk blindfold covered my eyes. I reached to remove it, but Xiao Shuo grabbed my hand. "Don't take it off. The study is off limits. You're not to come here without permission." His voice carried a hint of irritation. What secrets could the study possibly hold that he'd snap at me like this? I mumbled, head bowed. "Why are you being so harsh?" Xiao Shuo placed a hot water bottle in my hands, guided me to sit on the couch, and softened his tone. "What brings you here?" Unable to see him, I turned my head toward his voice. "I came to explain. The medicine during the Lantern Festival, it wasn't me." "I know. Your brother already told me." "You know? Then why have you been so cold toward me?" Most likely the Crown Prince or Paisley Hang said something to him again. It was the same in my previous life. On our wedding day, the Crown Prince came to congratulate us, saying many kind words about me, how she seemed willful but was actually exceptionally well behaved with those close to her. Looking back now, every sentence was a subtle hint to him that my coldness toward Xiao Shuo simply meant I didn't consider him close. Just as I was about to ask if the Crown Prince had spoken again, Xiao Shuo already dismissed me. "Anything else?" "Yes," I blurted out urgently. On our wedding night, you didn't return to the bridal chamber, so I had to come find you." "Gigi, are you truly willing to consummate our marriage?" Xiao Shuo's voice grew even colder. What do you mean? Truly? I sprang to my feet, stepping closer to Xiao Shuo. What do you mean? Are you planning to seduce me and then abandon me? Gigi, have you truly thought this through? Xiao Shuo leaned back slightly, his expression hardening further. Even if I say I've thought it through, you won't believe me. Xiao Shuo, you never trust me. I have to prove it to you. Before he could respond, I reached for his sash and yanked it open. A sharp, bitter cypress scent wafted out. Xiao Shuo grabbed my hand violently, his body tensing. Mang Hanzi, I'm giving you one last chance. Leave immediately. Xiao Shuo. I knelt on one knee on the bed, leaning closer to him. I truly don't want to lose you again. The next second, Xiao Shuo slammed me onto the bed, pinning both my wrists above my head with one hand as he closed the distance. The tables had turned. An overwhelmingly aggressive aura instantly enveloped me. Xiao Shuo's voice carried suppressed gasps. Gigi, I gave you chances. Now, you'll pay for your choices. Only belatedly did I sense the danger. My hands instinctively struggling. In the struggle, the red silk binding my eyes slipped away. At last, I saw the study's secret. The study was hung with paintings. Every figure in every painting was me, from ages 7 or 8 to the present day. Some picked flowers and chased butterflies. Others rode horses or wielded swords, while some bowed their heads in deep thought. Every expression was vividly captured. Xiao Shuo frantically reached out to cover my eyes. I seized his hand, slowly bringing it to my lips. Under the gaze of countless versions of myself, I kissed his fingers. Husband, I am delighted. Xiao Shuo trembled as he pressed his lips to mine. I won't let you go again. I returned his kiss. I won't leave. I'll stay with you forever. The cloak slipped. The silk robes tore. Breaths turned to broken sobs, buried beneath the heavy snow. My former closest confidant couldn't get out of bed for 3 days after her wedding night. I'd teased her then. How could you be so exhausted? I've seen the fire-avoiding diagram, you're just too frail. I told you to learn archery and horsemanship with me. But you wouldn't listen. Her face flushed as she tapped my forehead. You're all talk. Now that I've experienced it firsthand, I finally understand the hardship. When I woke this morning, I couldn't lift a single finger. Xiao Shuo personally dressed me and carried me back to the main quarters. Maids and servants gathered to watch along the way. Embarrassed, I pulled my hood up to cover my face. Xiao Shuo chuckled softly, his chest vibrating against me. So you've finally learned to be shy? I stubbornly replied. It's not shyness. My face just gets cold when it's exposed. Then I quickly changed the subject. Speaking of which, when did you start having feelings for me? This question had puzzled me for a long time. Xiao Shuo set me in a chair, helped me out of my cloak, and poured a cup of hot tea. He seemed particularly eager to do these things for me himself. I held his hand. You could just have the maids do these things. Xiao Shuo paused. Gigi, when it comes to you, I want to handle everything myself. You still haven't answered my question. I nudged him. Xiao Shuo smiled. Gigi, do you remember our first meeting? I tilted my head, trying to recall. 3 years ago, when you first returned from the imperial retreat for the emperor's birthday? No, he said. 12 years ago, when you came to the retreat to escape the summer heat. Xiao Shuo spoke slowly. That day, I snuck into the kitchen to steal pastries. After getting caught and beaten, you happened by and saved me. My eyes widened. Ah, you were that little eunuch? Back then, I accompanied the empress to the summer palace. Every day, I played wildly with Paisley Hang there. When I was 7 or 8, I was obsessed with reading storybooks. I always imagined myself as a righteous heroine. So when I saw that group bullying little Xiao Shuo, I immediately stepped in to save the day. He was dressed in rags, and I just assumed he was one of the palace eunuchs. I felt sorry for him and gave him clothes and food. Seeing he could read, I also gave him books. After that, every year I visited the imperial retreat. I would go see him, bring him things, and sometimes chat with him. This went on for 3 or 4 years. When I turned 12, the empress suddenly stopped going to the imperial retreat. Naturally, I stopped going too. 3 more years passed. On the emperor's birthday celebration, he brought the third prince back to the palace. I saw him at the birthday banquet, but didn't recognize him. I thought that was our first meeting. Later, I saw him at every palace banquet, but my thoughts were always on the crown prince, so I never paid him any mind. It turns out, unseen by me, throughout all that time, Xiao Shuo had been silently watching me. No wonder when I fell into the water that time, he was the first to react, leaping into the lake to save me. Would Ji be afraid? Xiao Shuo asked softly. Huh? Afraid of what? I looked at him in confusion. Xiao Shuo chuckled softly. Nothing. Right. I finally remembered the earth-shattering secret I needed to tell Xiao Shuo. The crown prince wasn't the emperor's biological son. I wrote down every detail I could recall and handed it to him. Though this was a dream, many events within it later proved true. You must believe me and guard against this danger soon. Fearful he wouldn't trust me, I emphasized this repeatedly. Xiao Shuo gazed at me with deep, solemn eyes. Of course I believe you, though some details might have minor discrepancies. For instance, I recall in the dream the crown prince first attacked you after your wedding. But in reality, his first attack was during the Lantern Festival. I frowned and thought, tapping my fingers lightly on the table. Why would the crown prince suddenly attack you? Xiao Shuo raised an eyebrow. Probably because of my bet with Pei Ziheng. What exactly were you two betting on back then? He claimed I was neither scholarly nor martial. Unworthy of you. He challenged me to a horse race if he lost. He'd shave his head and become a monk if I lost. I'd voluntarily withdraw from the betrothal. I won. That's when the crown prince noticed me, perhaps realizing I'd been feigning weakness all these years. He's usually so composed, never retaliating even when Pei Ziheng humiliated him repeatedly. Yet for me, he revealed himself prematurely. You fool. Why did you bet with him? It wasn't worth it. I wrapped my arms around his waist, resting my head against him. The faint scent of bitter cypress drifted up. It was worth it. Xiao Shuo stroked my hair. I feared that if word ever reached you that I dared not even accept the challenge, you would be disappointed. After our marriage, Xiao Shuo grew increasingly busy. Yet I saw a hidden vigor in his eyes and brows, likely a sign of growing favor with the emperor. Moreover, I discovered a secret passage connecting the third prince's residence to the duke's mansion. Xiao Shuo often slipped through it at night to visit his elder brother at the duke's residence, though he refused to tell me where the entrance lay. Yet no matter how occupied he was, he always made time for me. Whenever he remained in the mansion, even while handling official duties, he would pull me into his presence. Everything was perfect, except for the recurring dreams of the day Xiao Shuo was pierced by 1,000 arrows. I would often wake crying from these dreams, only to be embraced by the man beside me, who would physically reassure me that he was safe. In the scorching heat of July, I received an invitation from Pei Ziheng. His birthday was approaching, and he invited me to celebrate. When Xiao Shuo returned at noon, I told him about it. I mentioned before that in my dream, Pei Ziheng later turned against the crown prince and met a tragic end. If we could win him over, it would benefit both him and us. Xiao Shuo tucked a strand of my hair behind my ear. His gaze tender. Gigi, you needn't concern yourself with such matters. His grudges against me. The Pei family's influence, none of it concerns you. The only thing you need to consider is whether you wish to see him. My husband. You are so kind. Moved. I embraced him. Xiao Pei and I were childhood friends. Though he deserves punishment, his crimes do not warrant death. Xiao Shuo lowered his eyes. Saying nothing. He simply held me close and kissed me for a long time before letting me leave. Gazing at my swollen, moist lips in the bronze mirror, I wondered if Xiao Shuo had done this on purpose. Entering the Pei residence and seeing all my old friends, I felt as though I'd stepped into another world. It seemed that since marrying Xiao Shuo, I hadn't ventured out alone once. He kept me up late every night, so I slept until late morning, and he'd return from court shortly after I rose. Stuck together day after day. Half a year had slipped by. Everyone rushed to greet me. Several princesses even pulling me close and affectionately calling me third sister-in-law. From their attitudes, I vaguely sensed the current state of the court. I'd heard that the second prince had been confined not long ago, and the crown prince had been reprimanded several times. I hadn't expected Xiao Shuo to establish himself so firmly in the court in such a short time. No wonder my brother chose him. Lost in thought as I walked, I looked up and saw Pei Ziheng. We'd parted unhappily during the Lantern Festival, and now he looked noticeably thinner, a deep sorrow clouding his eyes. Neither of us spoke first. After a long moment, he handed me a pine nut candy, our favorite childhood treat. As its sweetness melted in my mouth, I decided to break the silence, placing the Duan inkstone I'd personally selected into his arms. I said stiffly, "You should settle down now. Focus on your studies. And do something proper." Pei Ziheng stared at my lips for a long moment before suddenly asking, "Gigi, does he treat you well?" "Of course he does." "When did it start?" Pei Ziheng looked dazed and disoriented. "What? You and the third prince. When did you two start reciprocating each other's feelings?" Pei Ziheng ground out the last 4 words. "That's a long story." I shot him a withering look. "You're prying into such private marital matters?" "Gigi, he's not nearly as good as you think. I'll show you." With that, he grabbed my arm and dragged me to the woodshed. An old eunuch was locked inside. "You think he's loved you since childhood?" "No. He knew from the start you were the duke's daughter. He deliberately approached you." Pei Ziheng pointed at the eunuch and roared, "You tell her." The eunuch began his shivering confession. He had been the kitchen steward at the former imperial retreat. In his account, the entire charade of Xiao Shuo being bullied at the retreat was a performance he had orchestrated himself. He hadn't just staged this play for me, he'd performed it for others too. After all, I wasn't the only noble young lady in the imperial residence back then. There were others, even childless consorts. But I was the only one who reached out to help him. Pei Ziheng tossed me another notebook. I recognized Xiao Shuo's handwriting instantly. The entries spanned a long period, the script evolving from youthful to mature. Every single entry recorded my likes and dislikes. My clothing, food, lodging, daily routines, aesthetic tastes, every aspect, down to the minutest detail. It even meticulously documented who I associated with. Before I could process this, Pei Ziheng tossed another volume at me. This one wasn't Xiao Shuo's handwriting, but it contained a meticulous chronicle of my daily activities. The more I flipped through it, the more my heart raced. This daily log meticulously recorded the exact time I rose each morning, whom I met, what I said, even which dishes I dipped my chopsticks into more often during meals. Gigi, Xiao Shuo is nothing but a madman. Do you know how many homes he's raided these past months? How many people he's killed? Do you know how many new torture methods he's devised since joining the Ministry of Justice? Do you know? Xiao Shuo has been watching you all along. Pei Hang suddenly twisted his lips in despair. Perhaps the words I just spoke here have already reached Xiao Shua's ears. As if to confirm Pei Hang's words, the barn door burst open with a clang, guards lining up in 2 rows before it. Xiao Shua, hands clasped behind his back, walked toward me step by step. Xiao Shua's face still bore that gentle smile, yet his eyes held a hint of sinister madness. He stopped a yard before me, extended his hand, and murmured softly, "Gigi, it's getting late. I've come to take you home." He always coaxed me with this tone, and now it felt especially tender, so tender it made me uneasy. I instinctively took half a step back. Xiao Shua's expression hardened instantly. His long arm shot out, wrapping around my shoulder and pulling me tightly into his embrace. Pei Hang tried to step forward, but Xiao Shua's hand swept out, sending him crashing to the side. 2 guards swiftly pinned him to the ground. Xiao Shua planted his foot squarely on Pei Hang's face, looking down at him with utter contempt. A defeated foe, he sneered, has no right to speak of courage. Men, surround the Pei residence. Every last one of them is to be sent to the Ministry of Justice. With that, he clasped me tightly and left the Pei estate. Xiao Shua's expression was icy, as if he had reverted to the man he was in his previous life. He helped me into the carriage, his gaze fixed on me as he threatened. "Gigi, return to your residence quietly. No tricks. Otherwise, I cannot guarantee my own actions." I remained silent, lowering the curtain to block his gaze. Suddenly, I recalled the day after our wedding when he asked if I was afraid. It all made sense now. The thought of him constantly monitoring me, even compiling a daily log, sent a chill down my spine. I felt I needed to return to the Duke's residence to calm down. "Take me to the Duke's residence," I instructed the coachman. "My lady, His Highness ordered you back to the prince's residence." The coachman replied respectfully, "I'm a rebel at heart. If he forbids me from going back, I'll go back all the more." "Isn't there a secret passage in the mansion?" Emerging from the passage, I found myself in the woodshed of the Duke's courtyard. I wonder how my elder brother ever agreed to let him build this passage. Suddenly, I recalled the faint scent of bitter cypress that occasionally lingered in the air back when I was still unmarried. He had been watching me from the shadows all along. A sudden, chilling sensation washed over me, like being targeted by a hunter. But I knew this hunter wouldn't harm me. He'd even fight fiercely to protect me. A strange sense of reassurance welled up inside me once more. Frustrated, I tugged at my sleeve and resolved to find a place to cool off for a couple of days. With no one at home, I certainly wouldn't stay at the Duke's residence waiting for him to come fetch me. I changed my clothes, climbed over the courtyard wall, hired a carriage on the street, and planned to stay at a villa outside the capital for a while. Alas, my plan was foiled before it began. Halfway there, I was intercepted by the Crown Prince's men. All the way back to the Crown Prince's quarters, I was consumed by regret. Life had grown too comfortable, making me nearly forget that venomous snake. The Crown Prince had been lurking nearby all along. I should have stayed put at home, at least giving Xiao Shua a chance to explain. Thinking back, I realized I hadn't been truly angry when I heard that eunuch's words. Xiao Shua had risen to his position through his own efforts. He was certainly no saint. But even if our relationship began on shaky ground, he later risked his life for me. The preferences recorded in that notebook included some I didn't even know myself. He observed me keenly, then consistently presented himself in ways I found pleasing. He hid his true self and groveled to please me. It was hard to blame him for that. The only thing that troubles me are those daily logs. We were together most of the time. Why did he need someone to record my every move? But regardless, all of this amounts to him deceiving me at worst, without causing me any real harm. What truly matters now is that I've fallen into the Crown Prince's hands. In my previous life, 3 years after marrying Xiao Shua, the crown prince lured me into a secluded courtyard. When Xiao Shua came to rescue me, he was pierced by countless arrows and died. This lifetime, there's no guarantee my rebirth won't trigger this ambush prematurely. After all, there's already a precedent. The nightmare scenario keeps replaying in my mind. The thought of possibly losing Xiao Shua makes a sharp pain surge in my chest. The carriage stopped. Someone led me into a dimly lit room. The crown prince's voice echoed, "Thanks to little Pei. Seeing Gigi now is no easy feat." Instantly, all the pieces clicked into place. Pei Ziheng wasn't clever enough to search the imperial retreat for clues. That eunuch. Those notebooks, they must have all been given to him by the crown prince. The crown prince must have had some fatal weakness Xiao Shua had uncovered, likely a secret concerning his origins. Desperate, he'd resorted to capturing me to threaten Xiao Shua. Unfortunately, Xiao Shua had protected me too well. The crown prince never found an opening. So he used Pei Ziheng's birthday as a pretext to lure me out. Knowing the Pei residence was under tight surveillance, he couldn't abduct me there. Instead, he had Pei Ziheng drive a wedge between me and Xiao Shua. The crown prince knew my temperament well. He understood that once I learned the truth, I would inevitably leave the third prince's residence of my own accord. That was his chance. Reborn into this life. After all these twists and turns, I had become the sword in the crown prince's hand, aimed at Xiao Shua. My thoughts raced, and tears immediately fell. Brother crown prince, I regret marrying him. Xiao Shua, he's a madman. You have no idea, he's been spying on me all along. Sniffling and sobbing, I recounted today's events at the Pei residence, embellishing every detail to express my utter revulsion. Brother crown prince, take me back to the duke's residence at once. I must have father and my brothers plead with the emperor to grant me a divorce from him. The crown prince listened with a smile, then gently wiped my tears away. Of course we'll take Cixi back, he said softly. But first, we'll use Cixi to exchange something from him. I looked at him in confusion. What could I possibly exchange? The crown prince smiled. His life. What? Crown prince brother. Don't joke like that. He's only using me. How could he possibly die for me? Is that so? Gigi needn't be so quick to belittle herself. The crown prince clapped his hands. A wall in the dark chamber suddenly rose, flooding the space with bright light. I raised my hand to shield my eyes. Gigi, look. The crown prince tilted his chin. I followed his gesture and saw that beyond the chamber was a small courtyard. Xiao Shua stood right in the center of it. My heart clenched. When had he arrived? Had he heard my words? A guard beside me suddenly drew his sword, pressing the blade against my throat. The crown prince leisurely poured himself a cup of tea. My third brother. Attending alone. Truly bold. Xiao Shua didn't look at me, only coldly asked, "What must this elder brother do to release her?" The crown prince propped his chin on his hand. His posture relaxed. Then kneel before me first. Xiao Shua knelt without hesitation. Truly a bastard, kneels at a word. The crown prince sneered, then suddenly smashed his teacup. Yet father holds such high regard for a bastard like you. Why? Xiao Shua stood ramrod straight, ignoring the remark. He only asked, "What other conditions does your royal highness have?" The crown prince glanced at me, quickly regaining his composure. Third brother. Hand over what you hold, and I shall release her. Agreed. The item is on my person. Release her first. The crown prince raised an eyebrow, likely surprised Xiao Shua carried evidence of his birth with him. Third brother. You truly let lust cloud your judgment. Concern has made you reckless. Didn't you consider that since the item is on you, I could simply kill both of you? Your Royal Highness only wants proof of your origins. Now that you have it, killing Gigi serves no purpose for you. As for me, You intend to kill me regardless. Xiao Shuo remained composed. And I'm already marked for death. Excellent! 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 The crown prince clapped his hands in laughter. Who knew our family would raise such a fearless romantic fool? I've changed my mind. Not only will I kill you, but I'll also pin the crime of disrupting the dragon veins on your head. The third prince's origins were exposed by me. He tried to kill me, so I shot him dead in this villa. Third brother, what do you think of this outcome? With that, the crown prince raised his hand. Suddenly, archers appeared on the surrounding walls. The scene before me began to overlap with memories from my past life. A crushing terror gripped my heart. No! I rose to flee, but a blade instantly sliced my neck. Blood trickling down the steel. Xiao Shuo and the crown prince shouted in unison. Don't move! I instantly understood, unless absolutely necessary. The crown prince did not wish to kill me. To kill me would mean declaring war on the duke's household. I turned to the crown prince. Your Highness, if you insist on killing him, Gigi will take her own life at once. With his skills, if he needn't worry about me, he could surely escape. Then you'd still be chasing after nothing. Gigi, you dare threaten me? Fury flared in the crown prince's eyes. You just wanted to divorce him. Killing him now would settle everything once and for all. Wouldn't it? Father treated me this way. And now you do too. What am I lacking compared to that bastard? Very well. If you insist on being a pair of star-crossed lovers, I'll grant your wish. With that, he violently yanked me up and flung me into the courtyard. Xiao Shuo immediately sprang up to catch me. Only when I held him tightly in my arms did a flicker of reassurance stir within me. If heaven granted me this second chance, it surely wasn't to repeat the same mistakes. There must be another way. My heart raced, my mind spinning frantically. Yet Xiao Shuo remained as calm as ever. He lowered his gaze to meet mine steadily, murmuring, if you intended to divorce me, why come here now to throw your life away? He had heard it after all. But at a time like this, he still had the energy to quibble over such things. Never mind. In my previous life, we died misunderstanding each other. This time, at least, I'll set the record straight. You were here from the start. You heard everything? Xiao Shuo's gaze was cool as he watched me, offering no reply. I could only explain on my own. Who said I wanted to divorce you? It was all a lie. You don't want to divorce me? Xiao Shuo's expression was strange, as if he couldn't quite believe it. I looked up at him. I said it before, I'll always be by your side. Humph, Xiao Shuo let out a light laugh. Gigi, are you truly certain? Do you know what kind of person I am? Pei Ziheng wasn't wrong. I truly wasn't a good person. Xiao Shuo lowered his eyes, his expression dark and inscrutable. Suddenly, his scorching palm pressed against the back of my neck, his thumb, rough with calluses, gently tracing the scar there. Hiss, I sucked in a breath, instinctively trying to turn my head away from his hand. But Xiao Shuo held me firmly in place. Most of my life has been spent wallowing in a dark, murky swamp. The moment I first saw you, I wanted to drag you down into that swamp, to sink with me. From the unseen shadows, I watched you, scheming endlessly to mold myself into the person you desired, to draw near to you, to marry you. I plotted every step, scheming relentlessly. I wanted you to ache for me, to weep for me. When you came to die with me, I trembled with joy. I envied everyone who stole your attention. I wanted you all to myself, to hide you away. I wore a mask of refinement, yet seethed with jealousy that you loved that very facade. I trembled in fear you'd see my true self, yet constantly craved for you to see it. Now you've seen it, the real me, vile, greedy, twisted, consumed by jealousy. Gigi. Xiao Shuo released me. Tasted the blood on his finger. His expression growing more deranged. Are you sure you still want to die with a madman like me? My mind went blank. After a long moment, I blinked. Would you hurt me? Before hurting you, I'd probably kill myself first. I pressed on. Would you hurt my family? As long as they don't harm you, I won't lay a finger on them. One last question. Are your feelings for me genuine? Xiao Shuo took my hand and placed it over his chest. Chuckling softly. Shall I cut it out and show it to Gigi? His expression seemed to genuinely contemplate ripping out his own heart. Xiao Shuo. I called his name. He glanced at me, his mad eyes flickering with panic and fear. The next moment, he lowered his gaze, hiding all emotion. He was awaiting my judgment. During the journey here, bound and helpless, I had already understood my own heart. He was despicable, greedy, twisted, consumed by jealousy. But he loved me enough to restrain himself for an entire lifetime in the previous existence, ultimately sacrificing his life to protect me. Loved me so deeply that even when he mistakenly believed I meant him harm, he couldn't bring himself to hurt me in the slightest. Loved me enough to conceal his true nature, abandoning his original self for my sake. He loved me so much that even someone as slow as me could feel the burn of his affection. And for some reason, seeing him like this now made my blood stir. Xiao Shuo. I realized that compared to the refined, elegant gentleman, the way you are now stirs my heart more. What should I do? I seem to like you even more. I like you so much that even if we were to die here together today, I'd feel it was complete. Xiao Shuo's eyes snapped open, fixing on me with a gaze that seemed to devour me whole. How touching! The crown prince sneered. To be spouting love declarations at death's door truly grates on my nerves. Third brother. How about this? After your death, I'll show great mercy and take Gigi as my concubine. I'll personally care for her. Your Royal Highness. I'm in a good mood today and wish to avoid bloodshed. I shall spare your life for now. As soon as the words left his mouth, Xiao Shuo clutched me and retreated rapidly several paces, pulling us back to the edge of the wall. The crown prince bellowed, "Release the arrows!" A volley of arrows erupted, yet none aimed at Xiao Shuo. The arrows plunged vertically into the earth a yard from the crown prince, forming an arc, as if warning him, "Take one more step forward, and you'll be pierced through the heart by 1,000 arrows." The crown prince gasped in shock, only then realizing that beyond his personal guards, the surrounding area had long been infiltrated by Xiao Shuo's men. By the emperor's secret decree, the crown prince Xiao Yan is to be taken to the Ministry of Justice. The crown prince slumped to the ground, his guards rushing to his aid. How did you know to have men ambush him here? I demanded of Xiao Shuo. Xiao Shuo seemed reluctant to answer. Only after I asked twice did he reply. Pei Ziheng told me. If the investigation shows young Pei's crime doesn't warrant death, spare his life. Understood. Xiao Shuo replied, his reluctance palpable. My day had been a roller coaster of life and death moments, held together by sheer willpower. Now that the crisis had passed, my legs gave way, nearly toppling me. Xiao Shuo acted swiftly, scooping me up horizontally and lifting me into the carriage. The curtain had barely fallen when Xiao Shuo's lips met mine. A kiss that was fierce, reckless, and utterly unrestrained. Dazed, I thought to myself, I hadn't misread him at all. He truly wanted to devour me whole. This kiss lasted an eternity. I finally pushed him away, only for Xiao Shuo to kiss me again moments later. Tears fell as I murmured, Xiao Shuo, as I drifted in a haze from his kisses. Xiao Shuo suddenly asked me, Gigi, was that truly just your dream? I jolted awake, meeting his piercing gaze that seemed to see through everything. Soon, I resolved to lay bare the truth of my rebirth. So in the previous life, you fell in love with me at the very last moment. And you've carried that guilt ever since. I hesitated, then nodded, clinging tightly to him once more. In the past life, Xiao Shuang must have been certain of victory. Had he not saved me, he would undoubtedly have been the ultimate victor. Yet he abandoned everything without hesitation, willingly sacrificing his life. Sensing my low spirits, Xiao Shua gently stroked my back. Ziji, you needn't feel this way. In my past life, I saved you only because after weighing the pros and cons, I decided you were slightly better than the Empire. Though he died for you, he also made you remember him for a lifetime, quite a bargain. Don't get trapped in the past anymore. The more I listened, the stranger his words sounded. I looked up at him. You wouldn't happen to be jealous of your past self too, would you? So what if I am? Xiao Shua cupped my face, his gaze intense, our breaths mingling. In the eyes I desire, only you shall be seen. I chuckled softly and kissed him again. My heart mirrors yours, I shall never betray this longing. The end.